Hey everyone, this is Curb Knight, and today for Christmas I am bringing you the whole Christmas tree. Alright, so we are actually going to be doing a deck profile for Dragontree, specifically the Stoicheia build. It has actually been a while since I've updated this deck, so there's probably going to be quite a few new things that I do have to kind of update you guys on. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop straight into the deck profile. Alright, so if you are not familiar with Dragontree, you may be surprised to know that Dragontree does actually consist of 5 cards in the Ride deck as opposed to your usual 4, which does mean that since Ride deck no longer contributes to your main deck count, this is a deck of 55 cards when you normally go 54 cards. But let's go ahead and go over what we're doing here. So basically, if you choose Gryphoseed as your starting Vanguard, you can fill the rest of your Ride deck up with 3 Calamity cards. I think they have to be different names, but I have to just check on that. And then you do also have to include an Overtrigger in your Ride deck as well, for reasons that we will be going over later. So of course we do have to start off with our starter here. So this unit gets plus 2k for each Calamity card in your soul with a different card name. So yep, they do have to be different card names if you want to get any power. But basically at the beginning of your Ride phase, you choose a Calamity card from your Ride deck and you put it into your soul. And then once you do achieve the 3 Calamity cards in the soul, you put 3 of them into your Ride deck face up in order to search your deck for the Dragontree of Dissemination, Gryphogila, ride it as stand, and then if you search your deck, shuffle, and then if you did ride from deck, you do ride from deck or hand, but if you rode, you choose 2 of your rearguard circles and you place Dragontree markers. One thing to note about that second skill where you're placing Dragontree markers, it doesn't actually matter if there is a Dragontree marker there already, you just automatically always get to play it there. Now the Calamity cards we're playing don't really matter, they just need to have different names. All of them have 2 different arts. I'm just playing the ones that we got in, I believe, set 9 or yeah, set 9. But it's just, the 3 things. They have effects, but they don't actually matter because no one's ever played these in a main deck. And of course, we are just opting to play Blessed Favor, just because it's an overall solid over trigger. You can play technically any over trigger as long as you can play it in Stoicheia, but we're just gonna stick with the Blessed Favor. Alright, so getting into the main deck, we are actually going to be starting off with not grade 3s, but actually grade 11s. This is the only grade 11 in the game, that being Supreme Dragontree of Annihilation, Gryphogila Vartex. So when you do place this card by riding, you get a token set order, which is this thing. We'll go over it in a little bit, I guess. But during your turn, this unit is always going to be getting a plus 10k and extra crit, and quick note, it is an 18k base, as you can see there. And then during both players' turns, if the total number of Hydreigonum or Dragontree markers is 10 or more, it gets an additional 10k. So while you are an 18k base, you can theoretically be 28k on your opponent's turn, which is kind of just the point of this deck, where you're kind of just stalling to get to your final win con, which is the last skill. So when it attacks the Vanguard, you choose a face-up Calamity card in your Ride deck. Remember the 3 ones you put there from Gryphoseed, you remove it from the game. And then if you're unable to remove a card, you choose an Overtrigger from your Ride deck. Or it doesn't even have to be an Overtrigger, it's just any trigger from your Ride deck. You reveal it, activate all its trigger effects and additional effects, and then you restand every single one of your rearguard that is on a Dragontree marker. So the main object of this deck is to accelerate to 10 Hydreigonums or Dragontree markers, which admittedly is not as easy as you think it is, but you're not really playing a good deck right now, so you might as well go for the big funny. We can go over the set order, I suppose. Basically, this is just what you acquire when you ride into grade 11, and then at the beginning of your main phase, you can choose a trigger from your deck, and if you do, you place it in your Ride deck face up, meaning that theoretically after you use your Overtrigger, you can actually activate that trigger effect. As well when you attack while you have all 3 calamities, assuming you live that long. but you can activate it. But basically, you do that in order to call Hydreigon from your drop zone. And then we do have another skill, the act once per turn. You can discard a Griffogila from your hand in order to choose one of your regards, and you place a marker there. Now, unlike most of the other ones, which say one that doesn't have a marker, this one can be placed anywhere, so that is why it is somewhat beneficial to use this effect if you're able to do it. Then after that, you can pay the cost of putting the top card of your deck into your damage zone face down in order to choose a Calamity card from your Ride deck and remove it, which is just trying to accelerate that the Ride deck removal, because it takes 3 turns past riding into grade 10 to actually get the 3 removed. Alright, so continuing on, still not with the grade 3s, actually continuing on with the grade 10s. This is the original Griffogila, who basically is the one you ride into. We're only playing 2 copies because he is kind of a brick and you don't want to play very much non-shield. Realistically, you're only playing 2 just so that you always have it. But during your turn, he gets 5k for each of your Dragontree markers. And if you have 3 or more, which is super easy to get, because remember, you do get 3, so you just need to get an additional 1 more. He does get an extra crit. And of course, he has that other effect, which is the same as Vartex. When he attacks, remove a trigger or remove a Calamity card from your Ride deck, and then if you have no more, you activate the Overture from your Ride deck. Quick note, he can only activate the Overture, but Vartex can activate any trigger whatsoever. Alright, so finally moving into the grade 3 cards. We're actually playing 0 grade 3 unit cards. We're just playing 2 copies of the Mask of Hydreigon. Of course, this card is searchable, and it is also just the top 5 check for Dragontree or Masks. Of course, we're playing it in order to search out our Vartex, because you do need to hard draw it and, ride into it on turn 4, preferably. Okay, finally getting into some unit cards. We are, of course, going to be playing the 4 copies of the Depth Illithid. This is just your basic grade 2 Dragontree marker creator on place. You counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose a rearguard without any Dragontree markers, and you put a marker there. Then you can search your deck for the Mask of Hydreigon. So this is our primary, unfortunately our primary attacker, but also one of our ways of, generating actual markers. So now to actually have some payoff with that markers, I'm actually continuing to play, I believe I was playing this in the last deck list, the Spry Cactus. A very simple card. If he is on a Dragontree marker, let me see, hopefully get that, there we go. If he is on a Dragontree marker, he gets boost, and he can also intercept from the back row. So he's just a 10k booster, although to be more realistic, he's a 15k booster, because on the Dragontree marker, he's going to be getting an extra 5k. So he'll be able to boost, and committing him from hand is not like losing out on any shield, which you normally do when you call boosters, but you can't because you can always just intercept with him from the back row. So that extra 5k shield that you sometimes do desperately need. Continuing on, finishing off with the grade 2 units, we are playing 2 copies of the Maundering Loyalty. At the end of your turn, if he's on a rearguard with a Dragontree marker, you can retire him to choose a grade 3 or greater card from your drop and put it into your hand. So effectively what we're going to be doing with this is if we do end up having to pitch Vartex for the Ride deck, we can use the dog in order to just add it back for our turn 4, or more realistically, we ride into Vartex, we Soul Blast out the Dragontree. During the end phase, we can retire this to add the Griffogila back to our hand so that we have something to pay for the cost of the set order during the next turn. And of course, for our last grade 2 card, we are playing the most broken Regalius piece for this deck, of course, that being the Twin Cast. So Twin Cast, as you may know, when you play it, gives the unit being attacked an extra 10k, but you can remove it from the drop zone in order to, give an extra 15k or something, right? Well, the wording on Twin Cast is actually that it gets plus 5k for each of its grades, and guess what? Our Vanguard is either grade 10, so that means 50k shield, or it is grade 11, which is 55k shield. So Twin Cast is just absolutely broken in this deck, and you should always play it. Might not be the best, to play in this deck, but is it funny? It definitely is funny, which is why you basically play this, because it's basically the over trigger in your deck. Alright, so moving on into the grade 1s, we are of course going to be playing, I only put 3 copies of the Abyss Alvis, because this card has much less of a utility. Like, yeah, you do need to get those markers, but realistically, you're only going to need 3 extra markers, and like you're already getting 1 there, so you just need to find 2 more copies, because if you think about it, you get your 2 markers and then it's just all about filling up your back row. And once you fill up your entire board with markers, there is no way to actually, get any more outside of using the set order. But anyways, he's on place CB1, create a marker, and then he does have this axe skill, which you sometimes use, but most of the time you won't because you don't have the soul for it. You can counterblast 1, soul blast 1 if you're on grade 3 or higher in order to add an order from your drop. We do actually have a few orders in this deck. You could theoretically add Twin Cast back, but I don't know why you would do that. But you can always just add back, Mask of Hydreigon, play it again, and try and dig even deeper. So continuing on, we are actually playing a new card from set 5, which is going to be this one, the Secret Recipe, the Aqua Force's Exquisite Curry. So this is a blitz order. You can play it for free if your opponent has a face-up card in their G-Zone, which may not be happening too much these days, but you play it with discard a card from your hand. You choose one of your units being attacked, it's 10k, and then you can choose up to 4 draw triggers that don't have Sentinel and call them to Guardian Circle. So basically, Griffagila is like a deck that doesn't really need that much offense, so we're playing a much more defensive trigger lineup. So playing a lot more draws enables this card to actually be somewhat usable, which is, I don't really think this card is very good outside of like decks that you kind of have to devote a lot to. All right, so moving on to a very rare commodity in these deck profiles, the grade 0s. We're actually playing 3 copies of Griffoseed in our main deck, and the reason is this. I don't know if you've ever read the Energy Crest marker, or the Energy Crest, but the only way to actually get an Energy Crest is by riding. And if you're paying attention, you would know that this deck does not ride until turn 3. That is, unless you're playing Griffoseed. So what you do is you ride Griffoseed over your starting Vanguard, and then you get an Energy Crest marker, and then you can start energy charging, which is very funny and very sad that this deck got nerfed by an entire mechanic, but who knows, maybe you'll get some way of fixing that. But the other reason we are playing this is because it is another Hydreigon, so this does contribute to your 10 count. Normally you'd only be able to max out at 11 by playing the Griffoseed. You can theoretically max out at, typically you max out at 8 just by playing the grade 2 and the grade 1, but if you do play the Griffoseed, you can max out at 11. I'm not choosing to go that route, I'm just going for 10, which in my opinion is perfectly fine. But that's the reason we're playing the Griffoseed in the main deck. And continuing on with some grade 0s, we are actually playing a grade 0 Blitz order, the only order that you can actually play, the only thing you can do on your first 2 turns. But basically, this is just a blitz order, but you have to have Hydreigon Vanguard. So you choose one of your Vanguard without any Dragontree markers, and you put a Dragontree marker on it. Then you choose one of your units being attacked, it gets plus 10k until the end of the battle. But if you are on a Griffagila, it gets 20k instead of 10k. So you might be thinking, what's the point? Why would you ever play this before turn 3? The reason is simple. This is a way to place a marker before you ride into grade 10 Griffagila, which means, like I mentioned earlier, Griffagila or Griffoseed's effect doesn't need it to be a rear guard without a marker. So what you could do is, if you draw this in your early game, you guard with it, get your marker, maybe you get lucky next turn, guard with another one, get another marker, and then you ride into Griffagila, and then you basically just put 2 more markers onto the ones that already have them. So that's one of the easiest ways to kind of like farm up markers very quickly. All right, so moving on into your basic stuff, we are just playing the 4 PGs. I'm about to just go full unit PGs. Theoretically, this could be, the Elementaria, the Crest one, because Griffagila can't play the other Elementaria. But, we're already playing a whole bunch of Blitz orders. Like, I don't really want to bother with, kind of conflicting with that. I just rather just play the 4 PGs. And then for our trigger lineup, like I said, it is very interesting. So we're playing 4 copies of the Lena, which is, there to be with the Blitz order, which if you manage to get all 4 Lenas in the drop zone, which first of all, good job to you, but second of all, that is a 50k shield, because these all get called to Guardian Circle and you get an additional 10k, so that's 50k shield. But you know, to kind of supplement that, we are also playing 3 more draw triggers, so that Blitz order has, like, you know, a little bit more utility, and in any case, it is like very useful because you do need to see pieces. This is very much a stall deck. You know, you increase your Vanguard's power and you try and prolong the game as long as possible so that you can actually activate your over trigger in that one final turn to kill them. And then to that effect, we're not actually playing any crits in this deck, which, yeah, I know it's blasphemy. But you know, our Vanguard already does have inherent crit, and I kind of just appreciate the extra shield value that you get from the 20k shield here. And then, of course, we are opting to just play, you know, regular vanilla heals. Same thing that applies. If you want to try counter heals, go for it. But, you know, just having 15k shields is very nice and consistent. And of course, that is just 15 triggers because the over trigger does count towards your trigger count. So unfortunately, you are playing a main deck of 15 triggers in a 50 card deck. All right, that's going to do it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do those YouTube things, like, subscribe, and Merry Christmas.